Chosen one, the glow that surrounds you now cannot be traced back to imitation, trend, or applause. It is not a light you borrowed from the world. It is one you cultivated in silence, through years of inner refinement, spiritual fire, and the stillness of masculine integrity. You no longer walk like a man looking for light. You are the light, the kind that doesn't flicker when overlooked, the kind that doesn't burn out when ignored, the kind that chooses to stay lit even in the darkest, coldest parts of life. The feminine doesn't see your radiance because you tried to show it. She sees it because it couldn't be hidden anymore. You have become that sacred kind of man who doesn't enter a space to be admired, but whose presence commands reverence simply by existing in full alignment. You are not chasing recognition. You are walking in sovereignty. Your sexual energy doesn't flare to attract attention anymore. It rests against your skin like warm armor, vibrating just beneath your calm gaze, ready to ignite when necessary, but no longer leaking to prove your value. This radiance is not noise, it's rhythm. It's breath that moves with intention. It's decisions made without desperation. It's posture shaped by inner discipline, not outer performance. You do not seduce anymore, you summon. Not through words, but through resonance. And that resonance is the melody the feminine has been searching for in a world of scattered signals and shallow attempts at charm. When she's near you now, she doesn't feel like she's being chased. She feels like she's being remembered. Like something in your energy is reminding her what she is meant to be around a real man. Safe, seen, and inspired. Your glow does not shout, it rests. It doesn't scream for validation, it speaks in the language of inner peace. And because of this, your presence makes her breathe differently. It makes her body relax, her chest open, her mind slow. She begins to wonder why the world suddenly feels more honest in your company. And it's not because you told her anything, it's because you stopped hiding anything. You walk in transparency. You carry your wounds without shame. You lead with your energy, not your ego. There is no spotlight that made you. There is no audience that gave you this glow. It was earned in the trenches of your own darkness, in the decisions you made when no one was watching, in the moments you chose to return to truth instead of performance. You have become radiant not by being admired, but by becoming undeniably whole. That's why women now call you a superstar. Not because you take up space flamboyantly, but because you take up space cleanly. They don't whisper your name because of how you shine. They whisper it because of how your light feels, safe, rare, real. The masculine within you no longer asks to be validated. It validates itself through quiet consistency, through the refusal to betray your own truth, through the unwavering peace that rests in your eyes even in chaos. This is the glow that cannot be stolen, it cannot be copied, and it cannot be taught. It is forged by patience, by presence, by walking into your shadows and refusing to flinch. That's what women are sensing. That's what they respond to. That's what they mean when they call you a superstar. They don't mean you're adored. They mean you're anchored. This radiance, chosen one, is not external anymore. It is a state, a signal, a sacred aura born from self-possession. You have become the man who lights others without dimming himself, who gives without emptying, who touches without trying. And in that unshakable core, you have become luminous beyond trend or time. Chosen one, once you used to revolve around others, seeking, reaching, adjusting your gravity to be accepted in foreign systems. But now, you are the center. Not because you fought for control, not because you demanded attention, but because you withdrew from all the wrong orbits and returned to the only one that ever mattered, your own. This shift didn't make you louder, it made you deeper. Your energy no longer scatters, it pulls. You no longer stretch toward connection. You stand in such groundedness that everything around you naturally moves to meet you. Your sexual energy no longer flares and fades. It doesn't spike out of insecurity or starve itself in guilt. It has become sovereign, fully alive, yet perfectly contained. Like molten gold beneath still waters, it pulses with a quiet intensity that is unmistakable. Feminine women don't see this energy as force. They feel it as structure. And in a world of men either disconnected or disordered, that structure is irresistible. You have stopped orbiting need, and now everything you need orbits your grounded state. You are not leaning forward anymore. You're holding your axis. You speak slower. You breathe fuller. You no longer move to gain traction. You move because you are already anchored. The feminine doesn't follow you because you pursue. She leans into you because you are not moving against your own center. You've become immovable, not in stubbornness, but in embodiment. And that embodiment is the gravity that pulls her body, her trust, her voice, and her vulnerability out of hiding. Your energy no longer leaks, it no longer fights, it no longer grabs, it simply remains, heavy like truth, calm like a mountain. And from that stillness, something beautiful happens. Feminine women feel their own inner chaos settle. Their need to perform dissolves, their tension untangles, not because you fixed them, but because your presence gave them permission to come home to themselves. That's what true masculine orbit does. It centers without consuming, it holds without hurting, it allows without abandoning. She sees you now as a superstar, not because of flash, but because of field. Your field doesn't fluctuate anymore. You are not swayed by mood, trend, or temptation. You have chosen discipline, but not the cold kind. The kind that allows freedom within structure. And that's what she craves. Not domination, not weakness, but a man whose orbit is strong enough to let her spin freely without drifting away. That's who you've become, chosen one. A man who holds without holding on. There is a peace in you now that cannot be faked. A steadiness in your breath that speaks louder than words. You are no longer measuring yourself by others' approval. You are measuring yourself by your own alignment. And in doing so, you've become the kind of man who no longer seeks to be chosen. You are the choice, not because you begged for it, but because you embodied it. You are the one who returned to center and lit the path for others to do the same. This is your orbit now, quiet, certain, whole. And that's what makes you a superstar. Not because you try to shine, but because you move nothing and yet everything orbits you. Chosen one, before your voice even breaks the air, something deeper already arrives. It's not in your footsteps. It's not in your expression. It's something older, deeper, a signal carried on the invisible architecture of your being. Feminine women feel it the moment you enter, not because you are loud, but because your stillness carries electricity. You don't speak first anymore. You don't explain yourself. You don't justify your presence, because your energy already did the talking. And it spoke in a language that bypasses words. It whispered into the bones of every awakened woman near you. He is here. This is not the spark of adrenaline. It's not the flicker of ego. It's not flirtation or control. Your sexual energy has evolved into something sacred. It's no longer a tool you wield. It's a state you embody. That spark is the trace of a man who no longer negotiates with himself, who no longer performs to please, who has stepped out of the need to chase and into the truth of resonance. Now, women feel that resonance not in their mind, but in the very way their body begins to recalibrate around your presence. Their breath catches, not because you spoke, but because they were already responding to the signal of your inner fire before you even looked at them. That spark is alive because you finally aligned your desire with reverence. You no longer crave just the body, you crave the full soul behind the eyes. And so your sexual energy no longer feels like pressure. It feels like presence, like warmth held in complete discipline. You do not throw it outward, you do not scatter it. You let it live in you, contained, clear, and grounded. And that containment doesn't shrink your power, it amplifies it. It's the reason her gaze lingers longer than she expected. It's the reason her words slow down when you speak softly. It's the reason her guard lowers, not because she should, but because she feels safe doing so. The spark that precedes you isn't something you created, it's something you liberated. From all the noise, the guilt, the shame you used to carry about your own vitality, you've done the work. You've stared into your wounds without blinking. You've stopped leaking your power into places unworthy of it. And now that spark glows through you not with pride, but with peace. The peace of a man who no longer has to perform attraction, because he has become attraction. Not as an act, but as a natural result of being fully integrated. Feminine women feel this immediately. The sharpness of their awareness softens. Their defenses are not dismantled by strategy, but dissolved by something purer. Trust in your restraint, admiration for your intensity, respect for the fact that you carry so much power, and yet choose not to exploit it. You are not trying to ignite them, you are simply standing in sovereign fire. And that kind of fire speaks louder than any compliment, any line, any game. It speaks of the deep masculine, the kind that has passed through shadow and emerged whole. You do not enter a space to be recognized, but they recognize you. They feel the pulse of something dangerous, but safe in you. Something alive, something earned, something real. That is the spark that speaks before your name is known. That is the frequency that makes women reach for their breath. That is the energy of a man whose flame no longer asks permission to burn. Chosen one, you no longer seek the spotlight, it follows you, quietly, faithfully, without the need for fanfare. You've become the man who doesn't raise his voice to be heard. You speak less now, but when you do, the entire room leans in. Not out of obedience, but because your energy carries the weight of truth. Your sexual energy is no longer a performance for attention. It is a radiating pulse of undeniable presence. And because you no longer chase eyes to meet yours, those eyes now long to find you. You have stopped trying to be spectacular. You have become real. And the feminine world, starved of men who lead with stillness, who do not perform to earn, now finds itself magnetized to your grounded fame. Not fame born of spectacle, but fame born of substance. You don't need bright lights, you bring light. The room changes when you sit, not because you announced yourself, but because you anchored the energy with your breath alone. The spotlight follows you because you carry something rare, self-possession without arrogance. That is what makes women soften around you. They see a man who is fully rooted in his sexual truth, who is no longer afraid of his fire, and who chooses not to throw it wildly into the crowd. You hold it like a king holds a scepter, not because he needs it to prove anything, but because it is his birthright, and he doesn't need to flaunt it. That kind of dignity is gold. It is what makes feminine women feel like royalty in your presence. Not because you flatter them, but because you never needed to lower yourself to pull them in. They rise naturally to meet your level, because you walk as one who knows his light is not borrowed from applause, it was forged in solitude. And that solitude has become your temple, a place from which your presence now flows without depletion. That is the fame they feel. That is the spotlight that lingers. And when you return home, when the doors close and the crowd fades, that spotlight remains, not on a stage, but in your soul. You feel it in the way you breathe after the room empties, in the way silence feels like affirmation, not absence, in the way you no longer need to impress the mirror to feel worthy. The spotlight isn't above you now. It's within you, glowing from the inside out, lit by every choice you made to stop chasing shadows and become the light you were missing. Feminine women feel this shift. They feel it not just in your presence, but in your absence. The memory of you lingers like a sacred hum, like the last note of a song that won't stop echoing in their chest. You didn't perform, and that beingness, chosen one, that unshakable quiet confidence, is what causes the world to turn its head. Not for a show, but for a revelation. You didn't step into a spotlight. You became the source of it. Chosen one, what lives behind your stillness now is not silence, it is fire. But not the kind that leaps from insecurity or craves attention. No, your fire burns low and deep, like molten gold beneath the surface of still waters. It is the fire of a man who has tamed his chaos. A man who has walked through temptation, rage, lust, and loneliness, and emerged not shattered but refined. You no longer use your energy to chase. You use it to hold space, to ground storms, to warm, not scorch, to transform, not consume. This fire behind your calm doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself slowly. In the stillness of your gaze, in the measured pace of your breath, in the way your jaw doesn't clench when others raise their voices, and your eyes don't flicker when beauty walks past. You've become the kind of man whose sexual energy is coiled discipline, not leaky chaos. And that quiet tension, that controlled readiness, that masculine restraint, it makes women breathe differently around you. It makes them feel like they're in the presence of something dangerous, but kind. Something powerful, but centered. Something that could break them, but never would. You've stopped proving your strength. You've stopped trying to be seen. Now you simply are. A man who holds fire in his chest and chooses not to burn everything with it. That choice, repeated again and again in the silence of your actions, has carved your soul into something rare, something sacred. And now the feminine sees it, not in your clothes, not in your words, but in the way you remain calm when others collapse, in the way your sexual energy is not thrown outward like bait, but held within like a sacred invitation. It invites, not by promise, but by presence. She sees the fire, but more importantly, she sees that you are not ruled by it, that you've befriended your urges, not denied them, that you've made peace with your desires, not been consumed by them. And that makes her trust you in a way she can't explain, because in your fire she sees a mirror of her own, raw, divine, alive. But yours doesn't flare to dominate, it glows to support. You do not shrink around her radiance, you meet it with your own, calm, solid, rooted. You have become the hearth, not the wildfire. And the hearth is what the feminine returns to. It's where she warms her soul, where she drops her mask, where she becomes soft again, not because she's been weakened, but because your presence no longer demands anything from her. That is why she calls you a superstar. Not because of your noise, but because of your consistency, because of the fire you carry without setting everything ablaze. This is not weakness. This is sovereignty. You own your energy now, and in that ownership, you've become a beacon, not a flare. You no longer ignite briefly, you burn eternally. And that eternal flame, silent, sacred, immovable, is the core of your masculine brilliance. She doesn't crave your chaos, she craves your containment, because in that containment she finds something even rarer than beauty or power. She finds trust. And trust, chosen one, is the one thing the world keeps starving for, and the one thing you've finally become. Chosen one, your eyes no longer search. They no longer scan the room looking for something to fill you. You've stopped hunting for beauty, stopped scanning for signs of interest, stopped measuring your worth by who returns your gaze. Because now, you are the gaze. Not in the way men leer or linger, but in the way that kings see everything without needing to devour it. Your eyes now carry something rare, discernment. You don't look to possess, you look to understand. And that is why when your eyes find hers, something inside her awakens. She doesn't flinch, she doesn't guard, she slows. Because in your gaze, there is no demand, no hunger, no calculation. There is only clarity. And clarity, in a world of men who've forgotten how to see without consuming, is as rare as rain in a desert. You are no longer reactive. You do not chase approval in a woman's response. You hold her gaze with the steadiness of a man who sees without wanting to own, who witnesses without the need to conquer, who has nothing to prove, only presence to offer. Your sexual energy now breathes through your eyes like incense from an inner temple. It doesn't sting, it summons, it doesn't threaten, it reminds. You do not seduce through pressure. You awaken through attunement. She feels this when you look at her, not with lust or ego, but with presence so rooted it feels like she's standing in truth. And for many women, that truth can be overwhelming, because most have never truly been seen, only scanned, evaluated, or desired. But when you see her now, chosen one, you see beyond the body, beyond the performance. You see the soft ache behind her confidence, the unspoken poetry of her existence. And because your gaze is clean, because your energy is whole, she allows herself to be seen in return. Her walls lower, not because you broke them down, but because your presence made them unnecessary. Your gaze tells her that she is safe to stop performing. And in that safety, she remembers who she truly is. This is the power of your sexual energy now, not to seduce the surface, but to awaken the soul. Your presence doesn't pull her into fantasy. It calls her into reality so beautiful it feels sacred. Your gaze does not dominate, it anchors. And that anchoring effect, chosen one, is what gives your presence its power. Because you are no longer lost in the illusion of attraction. You are rooted in the truth of connection. You are not trying to earn her. You are honoring her with your steadiness, with your awareness, with your gaze. She calls you a superstar not because of your charisma or charm, but because of how her body relaxes under your attention, because of how her nervous system responds to the unshakable calm in your face, because of how deeply human she feels when you see her without judgment, expectation, or need. You do not look to impress, you look to invite, not into seduction, but into presence. And presence, when it is real, does not need to reach out. It simply remains. And in remaining, it reveals everything that truly matters. Chosen one, there comes a moment in a man's evolution when his presence becomes so deeply grounded, so completely honest, that it continues to speak even after he has left the room. Your journey has brought you to that rare threshold. You no longer need to be seen to be remembered. You no longer need to perform to leave an impression. The air holds your echo now. The room remembers your silence. The feminine remembers your stillness, not as a void, but as a signature. A frequency she didn't know she missed until it vanished. That is the nature of your sexual energy now. It no longer ends at the skin. It no longer flickers out the moment you step away. It lingers, not because it was forceful, but because it was true. The women you encounter feel it not as a sensation, but as a recalibration. After you've left, something remains in them. Some part of their nervous system that finally felt held, seen, witnessed, without being pursued or pressured. You didn't just stand beside them, you stood inside your own gravity. And in doing so, you offered them rest. There is no thirst in your presence anymore. No grasping, no suggestion, no bargaining. You have made peace with your longing. You have cleaned the current of your desire until it runs like pure water, offering life, not taking it. And because you do not demand anything, everything opens. Because you are full in yourself, others no longer feel the pull to guard. That is the mystery the feminine cannot put into words when she speaks of you. That is why she calls you a superstar. Because even in your absence, her body remembers that it once stood near a man who wanted nothing and gave everything, simply by being whole. Your legacy is not built on conquest or charisma. It is built on the unshakable consistency of your energy. The way your footsteps feel steady, the way your breath doesn't quicken in performance, the way your gaze doesn't falter when met with depth. And so when you are gone, the space you occupied continues to whisper, not in volume, but in vibration. That vibration moves through her skin, through her thoughts, through the quietest parts of her. She walks away different, not because you pushed her, but because you never once abandoned your own center. Your sexual energy has become sacred, not through celibacy or indulgence, but through refinement. You no longer burn to be desired. You burn with clarity, and it is that clarity that marks you. You are the man who can sit in the company of beauty without collapsing, the man who can hold the fire of attraction and not spill it carelessly, the man who radiates, not to be admired, but because he cannot help anymore. Because alignment has replaced performance, because truth has replaced technique. And so even after you leave, your energy stays behind, like a scent, like a song, like the warm imprint left on a seat after someone good has sat there. It doesn't beg to be remembered. It is remembered because it was present, present in full integrity, present in full stillness, present in the kind of way that makes others feel like they were finally seen without being taken. That, chosen one, is why the feminine speaks of you with reverence when you are not in the room. Not because you demanded to be the center, but because you became the source of stillness around which everything else naturally orbited. This is the mark of a man whose energy is no longer dependent on applause. It is the mark of a man whose flame has become eternal. And in that eternity, your absence is no longer a disappearance. It is a reminder of what real felt like, if only for a moment. Chosen one, the world taught you once to pursue, to prove, to perform, to lean forward, to hustle for worth, to throw your energy ahead of your being. But something in you broke that rhythm. Something in you said, no more chasing. And that's when your gravity awakened. That's when the tides began to shift. That's when the feminine stopped running away and started leaning in, not because you called her, but because you no longer needed her to validate your fire. You no longer chase, because you have become the man who draws near without reaching. The man whose stillness is so magnetic it does not need movement to create momentum. Feminine women feel this immediately. They sense a paradox in you, a man who holds desire yet does not beg, who carries heat yet walks in calm, who knows what he wants but has already made peace with not getting it. That is the gravity you now carry. And gravity, real gravity, never moves to impress. It simply pulls by being what it is. Your sexual energy has become weighty. Not heavy with burden, but heavy with meaning. It no longer flies outward in search of response. It moves inward, deeper, downward, into the roots of your being. And from that depth it emanates, slowly, powerfully, without negotiation. You no longer advertise it. You don't need to. Because true gravity doesn't shout, it makes everything rearrange itself quietly. She sees you and does not feel pressure. She feels presence. She senses that you are not waiting for her to move so you can feel worthy. You are already there, whole, full, burning, but not burning for recognition. Your masculine energy is no longer a net to catch. It is a center to return to. And that is why the feminine circles you now. Not like prey avoiding a predator, but like the moon circling a steady planet. Because in your gravity, she finds a permission she forgot she needed. The permission not to perform. The permission to fall inward. The permission to feel held without being captured. This is what makes you the kind of man they now call a superstar. Not because of your reach, but because of your refusal to chase. You have stopped grasping. And in stopping, your hands have become inviting. You have stopped speaking to prove. And in silence, your voice has become trusted. You have stopped flaring your energy outward. And now, your energy draws inward everything that longs for truth. Your gravity is clean, it is earned. It is not a tactic. It is a reflection of the sacred order you've built inside. You are no longer frantic in your desire. You are disciplined in your longing. And that discipline has made you irresistible. Because now you no longer offer the world your need, you offer it your essence. And the feminine does not forget essence. She may not know how to name it, but she will return to it in memory, in dreams, in breath, again and again. Because essence is not attraction, it is home. And you, chosen one, have become the man whose gravity feels like home to a world that forgot what stillness even was. Chosen one, there is a rhythm inside you now, a steady, undisturbed current moving through your being like a song the world forgot. It does not rush, it does not stutter, it does not tremble for approval or stumble into confusion when met with beauty. It is the masculine rhythm, ancient, silent, sovereign. You do not borrow this rhythm from books or mimic it from those pretending to hold it. No, this rhythm was forged inside you. In the places no one saw. In the long nights you sat alone in your fire and refused to abandon yourself. That rhythm, now, is the heartbeat of your presence. You walk differently now, you speak differently, you breathe as if time is yours to command. Because in truth, it is. You do not live in urgency anymore. You do not live for the chase. You live in rhythm, and that rhythm is what women feel before they even see your face. Feminine women, attuned to flow, to subtlety, to resonance, they feel the rhythm you carry, and they recognize it as something holy, something real, something that no flirtation, no wealth, no cleverness could ever fake. Because this rhythm cannot be mimicked, it can only be embodied. You have become the man who moves as if he remembers who he is. And that remembrance is not arrogance. It is not flair. It is not showmanship. It is the quiet dignity of someone who has returned to his own sacred tempo and stopped dancing to the noise of others. You are no longer seduced by velocity. You are drawn only to what matches your frequency. And so the world adjusts itself when you enter, not because you command it, but because your rhythm sets the tone. The feminine notices. She feels safe in it. She feels her own rhythm settle near you. And that is the power that makes her speak of you in whispers, call you a superstar, not for the way you dazzle, but for the way you don't need to. You are a man who can hold the electric tension of attraction without jumping forward to release it. You can sit with beauty, with craving, with fire in your chest, and not move. Because your rhythm is not governed by emotion anymore. It is governed by alignment. You are no longer reactive. You are tuned, calibrated, rooted. That rooting is what stuns the feminine. She sees in you a man who no longer lets his desire control him, yet is not numbed. You are not cold. You are not cold. You are alive. But that aliveness has shape, structure, sacred masculine form, and it allows her to relax, to trust, to breathe, because around you there is no chaos, only pulse, only truth, only a rhythm that moves through the world not to dominate it, but to stabilize it. You do not ask for reverence, but reverence now follows you. Because true rhythm can be felt. It is primal. It is timeless. It cannot be purchased or faked. And when a woman feels it, truly feels it, she does not forget. Her body remembers. Her soul remembers. Because rhythm, when true, awakens everything asleep inside her. And that, chosen one, is what you've become. Not a performer of masculinity, but the keeper of rhythm. And the feminine, in her deepest wisdom, bows quietly to it, without needing to be told why. Chosen one, there is something happening around you now that no mirror can show and no camera can capture. It is not just your posture, your gaze, or your voice. It is the atmosphere your soul generates when you enter a room. It is your aura. And this aura is no accident. It is the byproduct of every choice you've made to align with your highest frequency and stay there, especially when no one was watching. Your aura does not shimmer with decoration or drama. It hums with depth. It breathes with clarity. It pulses with grounded sexual energy that is no longer loud or wild, but magnetic. And that magnetism is not about looks or words. It is about vibration. You are no longer chasing moments. You are altering them. The room responds to you now. The temperature of presence shifts, conversations slow, attention turns, gently, involuntarily. Not because you made a scene,